Everyone tells you to be kind, generous, and giving. But what if that very generosity is the reason people walk over you, use you, and drain your strength? Today, we expose Machiavelli's brutal truth, why generosity destroys power, and how to use money as a weapon instead of a weakness. A truth so old, so uncomfortable, that people in every century try to hide it behind the soft veil of morality. But remove that veil, and you will see what Machiavelli saw centuries ago. The more freely you give, the more boldly people begin to take. What begins as admiration turns into expectation. What begins as gratitude mutates into entitlement. And the man who once seemed noble becomes nothing more than a tool in the hands of those who have learned to ask. Imagine a ruler who opens his treasury to please the crowds. At first, cheers rise around him. His subjects praise his kindness, his generosity, his heart. But soon something changes. Those same subjects return, not with admiration, but with demands. Their gratitude fades into the past, and only the memory of receiving remains. The ruler, once valued for his power, is now valued only for what comes out of his pocket. His wealth becomes their habit. His generosity becomes their expectation, and his strength begins to rot from within. This is the cruel mathematics of human nature. Once you give freely, people stop seeing the gift as generosity and start seeing it as an obligation. They believe you owe them. They believe it is your duty to continue. And if you fail to meet their expectations, you are punished with resentment, whispers, and betrayal. Machiavelli understood this with a clarity few men possess. He watched rulers go from adored to despised simply because they could not sustain the generosity that people had grown addicted to. And addiction is the right word, because dependency is the silent poison in generosity. The moment you give people something they did not earn, you weaken them. You remove their desire to strive. You take away their hunger. They no longer stand tall. They lean on you. And the more they lean, the more your shoulders bend. Eventually, the burden becomes yours alone, and they forget how to walk without your support. But the real danger is not their weakness. It is your loss of power. Because once others depend on you, your own freedom becomes tied to their needs. You cannot refuse without consequences. You cannot withdraw without backlash. You cannot step back without being blamed. They do not see your sacrifice. They only see the interruption of their comfort. And so you, who once gave out of strength, become controlled by the very people you sought to help. Generosity creates a strange dynamic of dominance and submission. The generous one believes he is winning hearts. The receiver knows he is gaining leverage. The giver imagines he is building loyalty. The receiver understands he is building control. Every favor becomes a chain. Every gift becomes a binding. Every act of kindness becomes a negotiation you didn't know you were entering. And in this negotiation, the generous man always loses. For he is negotiating not with gratitude, but with greed. People admire discipline, authority, resourcefulness. But generosity, it wears off like perfume. Sweet at first, then forgotten, then taken for granted. A ruler respected for his strength keeps his position. A ruler admired only for his generosity must one day face the cruelty of those who want more than he can give. That is why Machiavelli warned that generosity is not a virtue for rulers, leaders, or anyone who aspires to power. It drains your resources, weakens your defenses, and strengthens those who should stand on their own. It creates followers who rely on your hand rather than your vision, and allies who measure your value by the weight of your gifts rather than the sharpness of your mind. Your reputation is strengthened by discipline, not charity. This is the law of power that most people refuse to accept. They believe generosity builds a noble image, a warm legacy, a reputation admired by all. But reputation built on charity is like a statue carved from sand. It looks impressive for a moment, but the first strong tide sweeps it away. Machiavelli understood that reputation is not crafted from kindness. It is forged through control, consistency, and the unwavering ability to hold your ground when others try to pull you in every direction. Think of how people speak about disciplined men. They may not always love them, but they respect them. They may whisper that such men are strict, demanding, unwilling to bend, but those same critics dare not challenge them. Why? Because discipline communicates something that generosity never can: strength. It signals that you are not ruled by emotion, not swayed by approval, not manipulated by those who want to feed off your weakness. Discipline tells the world that you stand on your own decisions, not on applause. Now compare this with the reputation of a charitable man. People will praise him with smiling faces, but behind those smiles lies a different truth. They see him as soft, persuadable, easy to influence. They measure his decisions not by principle, but by emotion. They assume that when pressure rises, he will give in. They expect him to bend, to compromise, to sacrifice his own stability for their benefit. His reputation becomes tied to his willingness to give, not to his ability to lead. And once your reputation depends on giving, it becomes a trap. Because now, to maintain it, you must continue giving even when it costs you your security. If you stop, your reputation collapses instantly. The same people who once praised your generosity will suddenly question your character. They will say you have changed. They will accuse you of greed. They will resent you for not meeting the expectations they built in their minds. Your reputation becomes a hostage to their desires. Machiavelli warns that rulers who try to win affection through charity eventually destroy themselves. For the moment a ruler tries to buy loyalty, he becomes a slave to it. The crowd's approval becomes his master. Their needs become his burden. Their praise becomes his addiction. And like any addiction, it demands more and more until nothing is left. Discipline, on the other hand, builds a reputation that cannot be shaken. Because discipline is predictable, steady, and rooted in principle. People may complain about it, but they trust it. They know a disciplined man will not break under pressure. They know he will not compromise his values for temporary applause. They know his choices come from strategy, not sentiment, and this certainty creates something far more powerful than love: reliability. A disciplined reputation also allows distance, which is essential for authority. When you are disciplined, people hesitate before asking anything of you. They measure their requests carefully. They respect your boundaries because they know you enforce them. Contrast that with the charitable man. People approach him without hesitation, without restraint, without consideration, because they know he will bend. The disciplined man maintains control. The charitable man loses it piece by piece. Charity makes people love you for the wrong reasons. Discipline makes them respect you for the right ones. Charity attracts those who want to take. Discipline attracts those who want to stand beside strength. Charity buys temporary affection. Discipline builds lasting influence. And when your reputation is built on charity, it lives in the hands of others. But when it is built on discipline, it lives entirely in your own. Strategic scarcity gains more loyalty than reckless abundance. This idea may feel backwards to the modern mind, but to Machiavelli, it was one of the most predictable truths of human nature. People think abundance wins hearts, that giving endlessly makes others grateful, loyal, and devoted. But abundance does something far more dangerous. It makes people numb. It dulls appreciation. It transforms extraordinary gifts into ordinary expectations. And once someone expects something, they no longer value it. Think of a fountain that flows constantly. No one stops to appreciate the water. No one treasures it. It becomes part of the background, unnoticed and unadmired. But imagine a well that opens only on rare occasions. People line up for it. They speak of it with anticipation. They value every drop because scarcity sharpens desire. This is human psychology, unchanged across centuries. Scarcity creates meaning. abundance destroys it. When a leader gives generously and frequently, his gifts lose weight, his rewards lose power. People begin to assume that whatever they receive today, they will receive tomorrow. They start believing that access to his resources is their right, not his choice. And once generosity becomes expected, it ceases to be a tool of influence. It becomes a burden that drains authority instead of strengthening it. But when generosity is rare, intentional, and strategic, it becomes unforgettable. When you reward only exceptional loyalty, only proven strength, only earned effort, people fight to receive it. They value it deeply. They know it is not guaranteed. They know it means something. Scarcity forces them to work, to compete, to improve. It turns your generosity into a prize, not a habit. And that is the secret. Scarcity transforms generosity from an expectation into a motivation. Abundance turns generosity into laziness. Scarcity turns it into ambition. Machiavelli watched rulers who tried to win favor through constant giving. Their subjects became spoiled, entitled, and ungrateful. The moment the ruler stopped giving, resentment erupted. The people believed they had been robbed of something that was rightfully theirs. They forgot the years of abundance. They remembered only the moment the gift stopped. This is the curse of reckless generosity. It creates a hunger that grows faster than you can feed it. But the rulers who practiced strategic scarcity created a different dynamic. Their generosity was spoken of like legend. Their rewards were symbols of honor. Their gifts carried the weight of meaning because they were not common. People served them with loyalty, not because they received constantly, but because whenever they did receive, it felt significant. Scarcity made the ruler's hand powerful. Strategic scarcity also protects you. It keeps your resources intact. It prevents manipulation. It teaches people that your approval, your support, your rewards are not things to demand. They are things to earn. When scarcity rules, people put forward their best. They rise to your standards rather than pulling you down to theirs. And most importantly, they never become dependent on your generosity. Abundance attracts opportunists. Scarcity attracts the loyal. When you give too much, you teach people to take without thinking. When you give rarely, you teach them to value, to appreciate, to understand the significance behind every gesture. Abundance loses meaning. Scarcity creates it. Abundance weakens authority. Scarcity strengthens it. Abundance feeds expectations. Scarcity feeds ambition. Control wealth, or wealth will control you. This is not merely a warning. It is a boundary between rulers and the ruled, between the powerful and the powerless, between those who command life and those who are commanded by it. Machiavelli understood that money is never neutral. It is either a weapon in your hand or a chain around your neck. It can elevate you or it can enslave you, and the moment you lose control over it, you lose control over yourself. People often believe wealth is simply something you possess, a resource you store, a number in a ledger. But real wealth that influences, wealth that shapes destiny, is a force that must be commanded with discipline. Money is a servant when guided by strategy, yet it becomes a master when guided by emotion. And there lies the downfall of countless rulers, leaders, and ordinary men. They do not manage wealth, they react to it. They chase it, spend it impulsively, flaunt it foolishly, or disperse it to win love they can never keep. To Machiavelli, a man who is controlled by wealth is predictable and therefore weak. He becomes anxious when he has little, careless when he has much, and desperate when it slips away. His decisions become tied to fear or ego instead of power and purpose. But the one who controls his wealth is immune to these traps. He uses money strategically, to influence, to build, to protect, never to soothe insecurity or impress those beneath him. Wealth is not his identity, it is his instrument. Imagine a ruler who lets wealth control him. He spends to fit an image. He gives to avoid criticism. He invests without understanding. He is guided by the applause of the crowd and the expectations of others. When wealth grows, pride blinds him. When wealth shrinks, panic consumes him. His decisions become emotional reactions instead of calculated moves. He loses sight of what power requires: restraint, clarity, and foresight. Now imagine the opposite. A ruler who controls his wealth treats money as a soldier, one that must be trained, commanded, and deployed only when necessary. Every coin has a purpose. Every expense has an intention. Every investment supports a strategic advantage. This ruler understands that wealth is not a showpiece, it is leverage. With the right use of wealth, he can forge alliances, strengthen his fortress, reward the loyal, build influence, and maintain independence. But he never lets wealth dictate his values or guide his identity. Machiavelli observed that people often misuse money in an attempt to appear powerful. Lavish displays, excessive generosity, reckless spending. These things signal insecurity, not authority. True power is shown in restraint, in the ability to say no when others expect yes, in the discipline to preserve resources when pressure demands you waste them. People respect the one who can control desire, not the one who is possessed by it. Wealth must remain a tool in your hand, or it becomes a chain on your wrist. When you control wealth, you move freely. You choose your alliances. You define your standards. You determine your path. But when wealth controls you, every decision bends around the fear of losing it. You become cautious when you should be bold, fragile when you should be firm, reactive when you should be strategic. Money begins to shape your identity instead of your identity shaping the use of money. Machiavelli believed that the greatest rulers were those whose power did not depend on wealth alone, but on their ability to manage it with purpose. Money without control is a trap. Money with discipline is a throne. Wealth does not create power unless it is directed by a mind that understands its limits and its potential. And the one who can command wealth without being enslaved by it is the one who remains untouchable in a world where most are ruled by their own desires. In the end, Machiavelli leaves us with a truth sharper than any blade. Power is never lost in a single moment, but in small habits. Habits of giving too much, bending too easily, spending without purpose, and letting others shape what should remain under your control. Generosity without strategy weakens you. Charity without discipline dilutes your reputation. Abundance without scarcity erases your influence. And wealth without command becomes your master instead of your servant. The world will praise kindness, but it will follow strength. It will admire charity, but it will obey discipline. It will take from those who give recklessly, yet remain loyal to those who give with intention. Remember that your resources, your effort, and your influence are the foundations of your power. Use them with precision, guard them with clarity, direct them with purpose. For the ruler, the leader, the individual who seeks to rise above the masses, Machiavelli's warning is clear. Never be generous without strategy, never allow your wealth to escape your control, and never forget that true authority comes not from what you give, but from what you choose to withhold.